WSTI Group LLC, and the United States Concealed Carry Association welcome you to the Children's Firearms and Safety Fundamentals course. This is our Fundamental Safety lecture. Please scan the barcode and complete a short pre-class survey. This should only take you a minute to answer the questions, and we will pause here to allow you to complete the survey. Now let us begin our lecture. Whenever children are involved with firearms, it's vital that you consider three important facets of safety. 1. Education. 2. Prevention. 3. Action. To cover these three facets, this safety seminar is designed to help you know more about the why, when, and how to address the topics of firearms and safety with kids of all ages. It will also establish foundations for creating positive, welcoming and fun learning experiences for youth while preventing accidents and promoting the safe, responsible and ethical use of firearms. Here are the topics covered in this course. These are the specific topics we will cover in this seminar, each of which plays an important role in prevention, education, and action. First, education, teaching methods, ages, and stages, safety overview, and gun safety rules. Second, prevention, hospitalization data, preventable tragedies, dispelling myths, and safe firearms storage, and lastly, action, a scenario review, and next steps. Let us begin with education. Education. The first tenet of the USCCA's Children's Firearms and Safety Fundamentals program is education, which is intended to provide the necessary details, training, and safety information for all ages. The main focus of education is to effectively explain and demonstrate safety and responsibility to children as well as educate them to make sure they understand what is acceptable and what is not acceptable around firearms. In other words, the goal is to replace curiosity, taboos and fear with knowledge, respect, and understanding. In this section, we will talk about the following: teaching methods, ages and stages, safety overview, and gun safety rules. Now let us go over some different teaching methods. From inquiry-based instruction and game-based learning to cooperative class structures and student-led classrooms, there are many strategies and techniques for teaching children and enhancing learning. You can incorporate whatever works best within your own personal teaching style. But for the sake of this course, we'll briefly look at some general, evidence-based teaching methods and discuss how you can effectively incorporate telling, showing, doing, and repeating in your safety and firearms training with kids. The telling teaching method. Teaching by telling is simply presenting details about a concept, or explaining what to do or how to do it. The telling method also incorporates giving proper instructions and explanations. Most of us have used this method at some point as a teaching strategy. It's a relatively simple tactic to employ, it's just not a favored tactic of children. This method is especially beneficial for those students who have a strong auditory or verbal learning style. Here are some tips for telling. Use children's names and encourage them to look at you while you speak. Clearly and thoroughly give children the information they need and then pause to make sure they understand before moving on. Remove background distractions. Give instructions only when you have your students' attention. Keep your sentences short and simple. Use language that your students understand. Use a clear and calm voice. You may use gestures and non-verbal cues to emphasize things you want them to notice. The showing, teaching method. The showing method could also be called the modeling or demonstrating method. By watching you, children learn what to do and how to do it. Showing is usually one of the most efficient ways to teach children a new skill, especially for those who have visual spatial learning as a dominant preference or style. Here are a few tips for the showing method. Get your students' attention, and make sure they are looking at you. Demonstrate skills or actions at about half speed, or less so students can clearly see what you're doing. Ensure they understand you are showing them at a slower pace for instructional purposes. Point out the important parts of what you are doing. You may also want to repeat the steps and let them demonstrate the process to you. Teaching methods. Doing. To use doing when you are instructing means you are using movement and action, for yourself and/or for children, to enhance the learning process. Of course, doing usually goes hand in hand with showing. After you have shown your students the correct and safe way to do something, you can guide them through the steps and enable them to actually do whatever it is you have demonstrated. This is the hands-on learning, or the active learning that many will need to be able to understand, practice and apply a new skill. Doing is very beneficial for children who have strong tendencies toward a kinesthetic learning style. Tips for doing. First, make sure you have enough space for movement activities. Use movement and visuals while you are teaching. If you are teaching steps, have students imagine or visualize themselves following the steps. Give children lots of opportunities to practice once they have seen you do something. If necessary, pause now and then, and have the whole class do something energetic, stand, stretch, or even switch places. This will help them refocus. Teaching methods. Repeating. Repetition is essential for all students, regardless of their abilities or ages, and no matter their learning styles or preferences. It is one of the main ways children learn, whether that includes repeating words or actions, or both. This is because new learning has to be reinforced for it to be truly remembered and understood. For this to occur, memories form as links between nerve cells in the brain, and these links form when the pathway is used over and over again. Repetition also helps to improve speed, increase confidence, and strengthen the connections in the brain that help children learn. This is basically what we call developing muscle memory. Tips for repeating. Repeat words or phrases using rhyming or rhythm to make the information easier to remember. Repeat actions over and over, altering the pace so children can succeed at different speeds. You should explain the topics you just covered but in slightly different ways. Have students share what you just covered in their own words. You may want to quiz the students as you go along to see if they are recalling and understanding the information. Now let us go over ages and stages. What makes teaching young people about guns and safety challenging is that it's about more than just the type and the size of the gun, the caliber of the round, the recoil, and the amount of experience a child has had with firearms. It's not just about stance and grip and sight picture. For any learning experience, it's also important to consider each child and think about character, temperament, strengths, weaknesses, emotional intelligence, cognitive thinking abilities, and learning styles. Undoubtedly, teaching kids about firearms is more than just determining the correct age, it's determining the appropriate developmental stage. Not every child will be ready, physically or mentally, at the exact same time or when he or she reaches some magic height, age, or grade. What's acceptable, appropriate, and right for one may not be acceptable, appropriate, and right for another. Let's look at some typical learner characteristics and possible teaching strategies to help prepare your mind and guide your steps for this. For ages 3 to 5, learner characteristics, they are active and mobile and have short attention spans. They are egocentric and focused on self. Natural curiosity, active imaginations and easily distracted or frustrated, and need security. The teaching strategies for ages 3 to 5, you should use small blocks of instruction with simple images and stories. You may want to incorporate children's favorite topics or themes to keep their attention. You may stimulate the senses by allowing play and manipulation of objects. Also, you should provide physical safety and emotional security. Here are some examples and ideas for this age group that may be helpful. Have young students hold and sort snap caps, which are dummy rounds of varying calibers. Show photos of kids following the safety rules. Use labeled firearms coloring sheets from a workbook. Use repetition and motions to teach important steps or rules, which we will showcase in a bit. At this stage of learning, the main rule to stress is, no. Don't touch. This may be the only but definitely the most important message they learn. Learner characteristics for the 6 to 8 group. They are more realistic thinkers, and can follow directions. They understand cause and effect much better. They understand facts and opinions and are literal in their understanding, so they don't always pick up on the sarcasm. Their learning styles are developing and showing academic growth in math and reading. Here are some teaching strategies you may want to use. Always allow time for questions. Encourage their active participation. Use a variety of media or visual aids, and incorporate games. Here are some examples and ideas you may like to use. You can tell a story about a child who is learning about guns by using a workbook. Use repetition and motions to teach important steps or rules. Use small gun replicas to fit small hands when teaching fundamentals. If going to a live range, use inoculation first to get them used to a gun's sound and motion before shooting. Start them with a .22 caliber long rifle. And use fun targets, reactive, such as the one in the photo, and always keep the directions simple. Aim gun, press trigger. Let's move on to ages 9 to 11 and their learner characteristics. They have higher level thinking skills, such as inductive reasoning, and stronger memorization skills. They can build on past learning, and recognize what is difficult or easy for them. Teaching strategies for this age group should be: use analogies and use a wide variety of examples. Incorporate various activities for different learning styles, as well as encourage independence. Here are some examples and ideas for the 9 to 11 age group. Encourage children to share examples of using and practicing the safety steps. Let children touch and explore empty magazines, and share what they notice about them. Show images of several types of guns and ask for similarities and differences. Write useful or corrected responses on a chart or whiteboard. You should use repetition and motions to teach important steps and rules. Use small gun replicas such as the one in the photograph that fit small hands when teaching fundamentals. If going to a live range, use inoculation first, and get them used to a gun's sound and motion before shooting. Start them with a .22 long rifle caliber. Use fun targets which are reactive. Keep directions simple. Grip gun, aim gun, press trigger. Ages 12 to 15, learner characteristics. In this age group, they have learned to use hypothetical thinking and have increased memory, external motivation, and personal preoccupation. They are self-aware or self-conscious and are motivated by social acceptance from peer groups. They experience increased hormones, fluctuating emotions, and considerable physical changes. Here are some teaching strategies that may be helpful. Focus on details. Incorporate problem-solving activities, guide, and direct more than teach. Make information meaningful to life, and incorporate technology. Examples and ideas that may be helpful. Use quiz apps to test their knowledge and understanding of topics. Give small rewards for answering questions. Use what would you do? Scenarios from a workbook to get children's thoughts and ideas about safety. Use have you ever? Type statements from the workbook to get them interactive and thinking about their firearms skills, knowledge, and experience. Start them with a .22 long rifle and use fun targets, reactive. Ages 16 to 18, learner characteristics. More self-motivated and self-directed, internal and external motivation. And have better critical thinking skills. Ages 16 to 18, teaching strategies. It would be best if you allowed teenagers to set their own pace. Let them share meaningful experiences. Directly relate topics to them and their lives, relevancy. Focus on the application, the why, and use problem-centered focus. Ages 16 to 18, examples and ideas for instruction. Allow them to explain safety concepts and ideas in their own words. Have teenagers read out loud from the book or presentation. Use, what would you do? Type scenarios from the workbook to share opinions and possibilities, and use, have you ever? Type statements from the workbook to get them interactive and thinking about their firearms skills, knowledge, and experience. Start them with a .22 long rifle, and use fun targets, reactive. Now let us go over the safety overview. Teaching kids about safety, especially firearms safety, never ends. Children are always watching, and always listening. They are always absorbing and observing others' beliefs and values, and they're often mimicking adults' actions. You must always set an example for them. If you choose to have firearms in your home and in your life, you must never disregard the foundational safety rules, overlook the value of safe storage, or underestimate the power of preparation and planning. Never compromise these things. Never believe it's okay to skip a step, bend, or break a rule. You can't get too comfortable or complacent. Always remember that kids need guidance, protection, and training. And it's up to you as a responsible adult, parent, instructor, and gun owner to provide that for them. Safety steps. To break down overall safety for kids of all ages, you'll need to teach them 4 important steps. These are not the safety rules for handling firearms, these are the steps you will teach to have kids in the right mindset if they ever come across a gun. You should say each out loud as a group or class and repeat it many times during your training. Children can pick up on the rhythm and the pattern of these words to help them remember these important steps. 1. Every gun is real. 2. Every gun is loaded. 3. No. Don't touch. 4. Tell an adult. Let's take a look at the reasoning behind each one of these simple but powerful messages. Every gun is real. Nowadays, many fake guns look real, and many real guns look fake. Many gun owners have customized their very real guns with all kinds of fun symbols, crazy colors, and even cartoon characters. This can make it confusing for children and adults. It's best to treat every gun as if it were real. This rule does not intend to make every child panic about guns. But with all the plastic guns, water guns, BB guns, and airsoft guns that are out there, some are more realistic looking than others. It is best to teach our kids to treat every situation with purposeful caution. Until a child knows for certain, one way or the other, any gun that he or she comes across in a closet, in a toy box, in a drawer, under a bed, or in the hands of another person is real. Every gun is loaded. This second message goes hand in hand with the first lesson, as well as with the universal safety rules. It's not a scare tactic as much as it is an effective method to instill a serious and careful attitude within children. Children need to understand that the bottom line is that guns are to be respected. And to respect an item means to be careful, to take it seriously, and to leave it alone, especially when it doesn't belong to you. And since a gun in someone else's home, car, or place of business may or may not actually be loaded, the hope is that kids assume the former, every time. No. Don't touch. Do not touch a gun if you see one. That's an important message to remember. Unless a parent or a responsible, trained adult has given them permission, or has determined that the gun in front of them is just for blowing bubbles, children are not to touch any firearm. This is an especially important message for little ones, since this might be all they can really understand. A simple, no. Don't touch. Or no. Not a toy. Is about the limit of their comprehension. But it's definitely a valuable message to instill. Tell an adult. This is a very necessary next step. You do not want children to be frightened of guns. You do not want them to run away in fear, or automatically leave a firearm unattended for others to come across. But you do not want them to be exposed to a potential temptation either. You certainly don't want them to be checking things out for themselves. It's best that they know there's a plan for them to follow in case they do happen upon a gun. That plan is simple: find or contact a trusted adult, parent, teacher, neighbor, babysitter, older family member, or law enforcement officer, and let that adult know. Firearms safety rules. It's imperative that you use and model safety at all times. Thus, regardless of age, stage, or experience level, children need to learn and follow the 4 universal firearms safety rules. As an adult, you may be very familiar with these rules. However, a great way to help children remember the rules and to stress their importance is to shorten each to one main word, and add safe before that word. 1. Safe gun. 2. Safe direction. 3. Safe finger. 4. Safe target. Have children repeat these 4 shortened rules until they are committed to memory, and be sure to describe and explain each one so that they fully understand the meaning of every rule. There are even hand motions that go with the safety rules to make them even easier to commit to memory. 1. Safe gun. Treat all firearms as though they are loaded. Another way to think of this rule is to instruct children always to be cautious and treat firearms with the utmost respect, all of the time. This is like the golden rule of firearms. Even if someone has checked the firearm, and it's clear, with no ammunition inside, a child should still treat the gun as if it were loaded. In fact, for kids, it's important to treat anything that looks like a gun as though it were loaded. 2. Safe direction. Keep your firearm pointed in the safest direction possible, and never point a gun at anything that you are not willing to destroy. An effective method for remembering this important rule is to ask children to think about the direction of a gun's muzzle at all times. They must be cautious of the muzzle of a gun, where the bullets come out, and make sure that it's pointed in the safest direction possible at all times. And, of course, that means not pointing it at people or things. Whenever possible, they should only point a gun at approved targets or approved directions. At the shooting range, this should be easy, since this means the kids should keep their guns pointed at the targets that are set up downrange. But in a home or classroom setting for dry fire, this means that you need to establish the safe direction and be consistent with it, no matter whether you are picking up a blue gun, aiming a finger gun, or setting a SIRT pistol on a table. 3. Safe finger. Keep your finger off the trigger and outside the trigger guard until you are on target and have made a decision to shoot. This rule can be a tough one to remember because many people have incorrect muscle memory to overcome. When a child grabs that Nerf gun, water pistol, or gaming controller, the first thing he or she typically does is put his or her finger on the trigger. You've also likely seen this incorrect habit a lot in TV shows and movies. But this is one of the most important firearms safety rules. Instruct each student that his or her pointer finger should be off the trigger and outside the trigger guard, straight out along the side of the gun, until he or she is on target and ready to shoot. 4. Safe target. Always be sure of your target and what's beyond it. Another way might be to say, know your target and what's around it, in case something might be over, beside, in front of, or even on the target. This rule is important so that children understand that a shooter is responsible for every bullet that leaves his or her gun. He or she needs to be sure that each bullet will go where it is supposed to. At the range with live fire rounds, this means that the bullet should end up in a berm or a backstop. At home, with dry fire practice, this means being aware of the safe direction. You don't want to set up so you are pointing firearms or training tools at neighbors, or toward rooms where people may be. Find a location, such as a fireplace or a brick wall, where you can set up and work through any drills. Now let us talk about prevention. Prevention. The second tenet of the USCCA's Children's Firearms and Safety Fundamentals program is prevention, which is vital to safe practices and putting a stop to accidents. The main focus of prevention is to set clear boundaries with children, whether in the home, in a firearms class, on the shooting range, or anywhere in the 360-degree world. It's also crucial that you are always vigilant about two things: 1, teaching them, and 2, watching them. In this section, we will cover the following: dispelling myths, hospitalization data, preventable tragedies, and safe firearm storage. Dispelling myths. Many organizations are providing their own spin on available firearms data and statistics. It's important to research these sources, and do your best to understand the information that is being shared. For instance, take a look at some of the following. According to one anti-gun organization's website, there are 36,383 gun deaths per year. But, 22,274 were suicide, 12,830 were homicides, 496 were law enforcement, 487 were unintentional, and 295 were undetermined. And let us look at a study published in the journal Pediatrics, from 2012 to 2014, on average, 1,297 children died annually from a gun-related injury in the U.S. Among those deaths, 53% were homicides, 38% were suicides, 6% were unintentional, and 3% were related to law enforcement or were undetermined. According to the CDC's latest statistics from 2020, 54% of all gun-related deaths in the U.S. were suicides, 24,292, while 43% were murders, 19,384. The remaining gun deaths that year were unintentional, 535, involved law enforcement, 611, or had undetermined circumstances, 400. There's no doubt that firearms have been involved in horrific crimes and tragic accidents. And, unfortunately, negligent shootings do happen. But the media typically lumps homicides, suicides, injuries, and fatalities together to make all guns, and all gun owners look bad. You need to keep in mind where you can make the biggest difference. Unfortunately, this may not be in the categories of suicide and murder, but you can continue to make a positive impact by reducing the percentages in the accident category, especially as it relates to children. Hospitalization data. It's important to acknowledge that firearms-related accidents have occurred. You need to face the tough realities so that you know how to plan better and prepare for accident prevention. For instance, while research and statistics on firearms injuries tend to be skewed, since intentional, self-inflicted injury and gang activity are often included, researchers analyzing hospitalization data for a national representative sample of non-fatal injuries in children and adolescents, up to age 20, did uncover some interesting findings. The most common types of firearms injuries in children included open wounds, 52%, fractures, 50%, and internal injuries of the thorax, abdomen, or pelvis, 34%. Keep these statistics in mind when you discuss the firearms safety rules and why being aware of where a firearm's muzzle is pointed at all times is of utmost importance. In children under age 10, 75% of firearms-related hospitalizations were due to unintentional injuries. In other words, these statistics show that the majority of these accidents did not involve anyone purposefully or intentionally harming children. Rates of firearms-related injury were highest for those ages 15 to 19, 27.94 per 100,000. Think about the cognitive development of different ages and stages. During this time of life, teenagers are often looking for peer support and approval. And even as they are moving into adulthood, the areas of the brain responsible for good judgment and decision-making aren't fully developed. Thus, you should consider how many of these injuries could be peer-influenced and/or even gang-related. Of all firearms-related hospitalizations, 89% were males. The hospitalization rate for males was 15.22 per 100,000, compared with 1.93 per 100,000 for females. There are myriad differences in gender and learning styles, so this is an interesting statistic to note since boys do have a higher tendency toward aggressive behaviors. Preventable tragedies. The Second Amendment community also needs to recognize that some terrible tragedies related to firearms have occurred. These are just a few horrific stories pulled from the national media. Think about how education and training may have been able to keep these terrible events from happening. Boy, 3, fatally shot his mom with a gun he found in the back seat of her car. 2 cousins, 12 and 14, killed while playing with gun on Instagram Live. Child, 4, accidentally kills himself with gun found in car. Florida teen killed as boys took turns shooting with body armor on. The flip side. Also, don't forget about the good news. For instance, what about these titles? Why didn't these stories about the same experiment get national attention? Kids from gun-owning families know not to pick up firearms unattended. This can be viewed at the links on the screen or Google search. Experiment shows differences between children with guns in the home and those without. From the article, an experiment held in Iowa by police officers and parents had some interesting findings. Police put a fake gun which could not be fired in a room and then let 8 children into the room. It took a child just 15 seconds to find the gun. With parents and law enforcement watching, the children passed the fake weapon around, aiming it and attempting to shoot it. While the result might not be surprising to most, the only 2 children who did not touch the weapon were children whose families have guns inside the home, and have explained the dangers and responsibilities of guns. The bottom line is, educating children about firearms and safety can make a difference. Safe firearm storage. If children have not been taught that firearms are not to be touched, then they may make a poor decision and get out a gun, play with a gun, or, worse, fire a gun. Younger children and toddlers, especially, have to be watched and protected. This is why, if you're a gun owner, you must do your best to prevent firearms accidents by utilizing safe storage options. Keep in mind that research has shown that children who live in homes where guns are kept are almost always aware of where the hiding spots are located, even if the parents believe the children don't know. So how do you store guns and keep your children safe? Finding a balance between having a gun available when you might need it and keeping guns and ammo safely stored is not an easy task. But there are several options to consider. Option 1. Secure in the gun safe. For many gun owners, a safe is the #1 common sense, go-to option. A good gun safe is fireproof and theft-proof, and is designed to deter even the most crafty, power tool-wielding grown-up, so there's an excellent chance that it will keep firearms out of the hands of even the most high-spirited or unruly youngster. A safe is a practical and sensible choice, especially if you live in a home with multiple guns to store. With that, gun safes are available in all sorts of shapes and sizes that fit varying space and budgetary needs. Some safes utilize unique technology, such as a biometric lock, which opens with the swipe of a fingerprint. Others use radio frequency identification, which provides access to a gun via the proximity of a key fob, bracelet, card or sticker. These quick access safes are great options for safely staging firearms in your home. Another option may be hidden in plain sight. While not quite gun safes, there are some options that effectively store or stage guns while keeping them well hidden from unauthorized users. Aside from clever concealment furniture, shelves, clocks, mirrors and benches, there are also books, bookshelves and hanging garment bags with hidden compartments designed specifically for firearm storage. These types of concealed spaces and hollowed-out areas are handy and convenient, but they don't, and won't, fool children. Remember, kids are smarter than we give them credit for, and a gun stored in the pages of a particular book or behind an unusual mirror is likely not hidden from them at all. It is much better to talk about gun safety and to be open and honest about the location of firearms within the home and to teach children up front about respecting guns and leaving them alone. Kept out of reach. Many gun owners choose to keep their guns in a hard-to-reach location, such as on top of an armoire, in the back of a drawer or up high on a shelf. Out of sight, out of mind is often the first layer of safety. For instance, a gun stored unloaded, with the magazine out, in a hard shell case on a high closet shelf may be out of sight, out of mind and out of reach for children, but it's still easy enough for authorized users to access in case of a dangerous or unsafe situation. The key issue here is selecting a place that isn't tempting to kids. Just never be fooled, the secret location is most likely not a secret at all. Let's take a look at a few firearm storage tips. Store firearms in places where they're accessible only to authorized users. Use a storage location that's out of reach of children, and that can be secured with some kind of lock. Gun safes, cabinets, vaults, or other storage cases are all good options. Store ammunition in a separate location that is locked and out of reach of children, and keep guns and magazines unloaded when stored. Remember the difference between storage and staging. A stored gun does not need to be in use, but a staged gun is set up safely for home defense and needs to be quickly accessible to authorized users. Make sure keys or combinations are kept in a place where children and unauthorized users cannot access them. Use a gun locking device, such as a cable lock, as an extra safety precaution whenever and wherever a firearm is stored. Get into a set routine for securing your concealed carry firearm, and go through the same motions every time. Now let us go over cap laws. From a legal standpoint, it is imperative that you are fully aware of local, state, and federal regulations pertaining to the safety and storage of defensive weapons in the household. Remember that some states and municipalities have restrictions regarding how unattended firearms and ammunition should be stored in a home, business, or motor vehicle. This makes it incumbent upon you to ensure that your storage locations and access methods fall within the local guidelines to keep you out of trouble on all fronts. Child Access Prevention, or CAP, laws are relatively new legislation. It is intended to limit access to firearms and prevent injuries caused by children. It is very important to know if these gun control laws are present in your state. Child access prevention laws can impose criminal and/or civil liability on parents, guardians, or other adults if children have unsupervised access to guns. These laws establish criminal penalties for owners who do not store firearms in the manner defined, such as unloaded, in a locked compartment, separate from ammunition, etc. Overall, when it comes to keeping guns out of little hands, what works best will be different for every family. Your home layout, lifestyle, and family makeup may all come into play. But no matter what your situation, you have a solemn duty to do everything in your power to protect the children in your life. Just keep in mind that children learn best by observing the adults around them. If you consistently practice safe conduct, your actions will teach safe conduct. And that's the most effective gun safety there is, no matter where firearms are stored. Now let us look at taking action. The third tenet of the USCCA's Children's Firearms and Safety Fundamentals program is action, which encourages you, a responsible, caring adult, to commit to doing something to make sure children are knowledgeable and safe. The main focus of action is to be able to consider options and put plans in place. In this section, we will cover scenario reviews and next steps. In the following videos, children of different ages encounter firearms in various settings. We will explore different possible outcomes and open the floor for deeper discussion and continued conversation. Note, these scenarios are dramatically exaggerated for the sake of learning and discussion. Real-life situations will usually be more nuanced and will vary in context. So what are your next steps? There's no better thing you can do for your children than to arm them with knowledge, whether you choose to have firearms in your home or not. Just like with any other important issue in life, you can't teach about gun safety by ignoring firearms, or by pretending they aren't there. Life's big, important issues are too significant to be put on the proverbial back burner, or entrusted to other people. You cannot expect your kids to understand a topic by sweeping it under the rug, or by isolating them from it. You must prepare your children for the world that awaits them, and that includes the good, the bad, and the ugly. Ultimately, keeping your kids safe around firearms is not about isolation, it's about education, prevention, and action. And we hope you are willing and able to commit to all three. Ultimately, it is about education, and not isolation. Thank you for your attention on this important matter. Please scan the QR code and take a quick post-class survey for me. It will only take you a short minute. The survey will ask for the instructor's name. It is Carrie Williamson. Again, thank you for your attendance and check us out at wstigroup.llc.org. Have a safe day.